Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Welcome. I have to give you credit. That is an absolutely ugly shirt, but it looks great on you.
There it is. It's the Hammer. Dave
the Hammer Schultz.
Oh, I got it.
Had all
Cameras doesn't do. There we go.
Had all the hockey skill of our wall.
That's all right. They won a Stanley Cup. That's
They won
the last
two.
time they won a Stanley Cup. Two of them, absolutely. Two, yep.
Back to back.
Back to backs. Yep.
Yeah.
76 being the last one. My goodness.
Yeah, they beat Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Beat the Sabres. So, I guess we'll start with Kanye Clary. Don't really know where else to start, but we will start with that. Look, first of all, he's not a bad kid. All right. Liked being around him. Basketball-wise, as the season was going, it became a tougher and tougher fit. You have to have the ability, I don't care, whether it's NIL or whether it's portal or whatever it happens to be, you have to have the ability to play winning basketball. And you have to be able to check in how you feel about things and to play winning basketball. And winning basketball isn't you taking a boatload of shots unless it's necessary. If you're hot that day, you're hot. Winning basketball is playing defense. Winning basketball is listening. Winning basketball is the ability to have conversations and not bring emotion into it. And it's a long list of things that are needed to play winning basketball. Winning basketball in this system is making the ball move, not making it stick. Winning basketball is that, when you miss a shot, you sprint back down the floor. You don't walk. Gee, why would Steve say that? Oh, just watch the tapes. Okay? We saw it live. You don't walk. Right? And as time went, it was getting worse and worse. And then he took that tough shot from Parker Fox, and he was out. He was out a couple of games, the Rutgers game, the Indiana game, and Penn State won. And then he was back in time and played some in the Iowa game, and Penn State won again. But things weren't getting better, and he was also getting plenty of outside advice that I don't think helps either. And now you go forward, okay? You're going to be in a spot now down the stretch where, because Meach has been hurt. And Meach is, and believe me, let me say something about Meach for a second, Demetrius Lilly. And we all know last year he was overweight, and he didn't lose any weight as the season went. And then in the offseason, Mike told him he can't play for me at that weight. He went out, and that kid busted his backside, lost all that weight, right? They asked him, I said, what plan are you on? He said, the Jason Lord plan. I said, what plan is that? He said, I look at his picture, and I decide not to eat. Just kidding. Oh, you didn't expect that answer.
Not that one.
Okay. He's, and he worked hard, lost weight, had to get used to his new body the way it happened to be, but he has worked hard. He's a great listener, great attitude. He is an excellent screener. He's the best screener on this team. Yeah. And also his ability to finish around the basket, outstanding, runs the screen and roll really well, makes people around him better. Now, he's a young guy. Can he be a better defender? Yes, because he's a tweener. He's sort of a 4, sort of a 5. You know what I mean? So not having him has hurt, without question. And hopefully they can get him back soon. I think he's getting closer. And but right now they're shorthanded. So you have the starting 5. You can bring Jameel Brown in for a few minutes and that 3-point shot that he has. You can bring in Leo O'Boyle for a few minutes here and there. You can bring in Puff Johnson now for a few minutes. Right? But the other person that you're bringing in is Favor Ire, who has not played as much. He's an excellent athlete, but Meach is, with all due respect to Fave, Meach is a better, quote, basketball player at this stage of his life than Fave is. Fave is a great athlete. I mean, really a great athlete. But Meach is the better player of the two. Now, and if the issue is going to be twofold for Ace, minutes played by Ace, no question. And the other part is going to be okay. If he gets in foul trouble. Mm-hmm. Now, against Nebraska, he picked up a foul 18 seconds into the game, but he never got another foul until deep in the second half. So he has the ability, for the most part, to play without being in deep foul trouble. But you have to have somebody that can run the team if something were to happen to him, which I think would be Ray Q. Mitchell. And you go from there. Your margin of error, which was not a big margin to begin with, is obviously without Kanye Clary shrinks. There's no question. And so your margin of error becomes narrower because of this, and your depth is affected by this. Now, have you had players step up and play better? Zach Hicks is playing better. DeMarco Dunn has played pretty well along the way. Nick Kern has played really well. Right? And for Kanye, I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he finds a great landing spot. And it, in the end, turns out to be great for him. I would say the area that he improved the most was his 3-point shot. Last year, Penn State's playing Texas A&M in the NCAA tournament in Des Moines, and Penn State's, they're up big. So he's in the game late. And they tossed him the ball in the corner. I remember it was the far corner from where we were sitting. And he took the shot, and he missed it. And I said, Dick, he's open for a reason. In the scouting report, they're like, go ahead, let him have that shot. This year, you can't do that. He ended up being a 38, 39% 3-point shooter this year. And he was not, I'll say this, I know he was a high-volume shot guy, but he was not a high-volume 3-point shot guy. He was about maybe 2 to 4 attempts a game from 3. Not bad. So wherever he goes, they're going to get a guy that's lightning quick. They're going to get a guy that has really improved as a 3-point shooter. They're going to get a guy whose defense needs not a little bit of work, needs a lot of work. And they're going to get a guy that can finish around the basket. In the Big Ten, my opinion was he had the ability. In high school, he probably could beat all 5 guys off the bounce. I always felt at this level he could beat 3.5 off the bounce. Right? Every once in a while he can slice through and get there. But, he could beat 3.5, maybe 4 guys. The problem was getting by the 5th guy, and that's why he had to take some of the angles he took on some of the layups, which he worked very hard on. But yeah, they've got Illinois tomorrow. Illinois will be in Rec Hall. We'll be going to the Jason Lord broadcast row.
That's right. It might be literally row.
They love you up there.
They do. They do.
Yeah, I mean, they think the world of you.
Except for wrestling. They say down in front quite a bit.
Yeah.
Even though it's in the very back, they still say down in front. I can't figure it out.
And Illinois is playing great basketball. They're 19-6 right now. They are big and they are athletic. The best player on the team, in my opinion, is not the guy that you would think. Who would you think is the best player on that team? It's always the leading scorer.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's always the leading scorer.
So you'd say Terrence Shannon.
Yeah, you're not going to...
Right, who had 27 against Maryland.
Yeah.
Now, we all know about his problems off the court.
Yeah.
Okay. He's only playing because he got a court injunction against Illinois to play. But the best player on that team that I would take in a heartbeat is Coleman Hawkins. Oh, my goodness. Hawkins is...
I think he's NBA. I think he's, in terms of NBA, I think he is...
Well, he was in the G League
ready.
Combine last year. He went to the G League Combine last year. But he is... You want to go inside? Hawkins can go inside. You want him to face up outside and take the three? Hawkins can face up and hit the three. You want him to pass? He might be the best passer on the team. Right? DeBrusque is really good, but Damask. Damask is really good, but Hawkins might be the best passer on the team. And then, as a defender, he's really good. I mean, Hawkins is just a really good all-around player, makes the entire team better. Damask has made a big difference as the glue guy. Danger, who was so important to them last year, is coming off the bench. He only played a few minutes against Maryland, but he's coming off the bench right now. Luke Goody, all but 26 of his shots this season have been three-point attempts. Right. And Shannon is a great athlete.
Athletic.
Not a good athlete. He's a great athlete who's got good basketball skills, can really shoot it. And they are big. That ball goes up, their size comes into play. I mean, they are a really big team. I mean, their backcourt is 6'6", 6'6". What does that tell you? So it'll be in Rec Hall, the return to Rec. They did that with Princeton in 13. In 15, it was Canisius and Louisiana Monroe. The last time Penn State played a Big Ten game in there, Penn State was undefeated. In one poll, was ranked 25th and beat Wisconsin 79-50. That was January 7th, 1996, the last time they played a Big Ten game in Rec Hall. I was a witness. They were doing all this stuff about the 1950s and so forth with Jesse Arnell. No, I did not broadcast those games. Mickey Bergstein did that. Mickey was great. And I know they put out today the winter workout winners. I was at this morning's winter workout. No, I did not participate. Okay, so here they are as put out by the coaches today as to who their winter workout winners happen to be. I agree with all of them based on my observations. Danny O'Brien, Bo Perbula. Jaywan Sider, Quentin Anthony. Let's see. Offensive line, Javen Williams. Wide receiver, Amari Evans. Tight end, Ty Howell picked Tyler Warren. I think I said Marcus Higgins picked Amari Evans, right?
Yeah.
Phil Trotwine picked Javen Williams. Deion Barnes went with Zariah Fisher. And Z was really good today. Another guy that was really good today. Time Allen went with Tyler Elsdon. Terry Smith, Cam Miller. Boy, he's got speed.
Yeah.
Whew. And Anthony Poindexter went with Zakee Wheatley. And Justin Lustig went with Blaze today. So, yeah. The Blaze Sokach Minnick, would be the number 2 long snapper. He was the winner of the special teams guys today. So, and there you go. They will go Thursday, then next week they go Tuesday, and they go Friday next week. And then that should do it, because that then leads into spring break. You, of course, were the master of spring break.
Never went too many places during spring break. My spring break was usually, if I wasn't working, I would be going home to see my family. That was about it.
Oh, come on.
It was never the, never down to Panama City or wherever they used to have the old days of,
Panama City.
Does MTV they used to have it in Panama? Remember MTV used to have spring break back in the day.
Don't look at me like I know.
That was years ago. I mean, we're not talking 2 years ago. We're in the 25 years ago range at least. But I want to say it was Panama City, Florida when they had it. That was back during the days of
you were a ringleader.
MTV.
Admit it.
Back during the days of MTV having music videos and actually playing music. I want to say that. Yeah, that was the early 90s. That was a while. I might have even been 30 years ago.
So, in other words, how long did it take for you to get all the rabble-rousers with you?
To get all the what?
Rabble-rousers with you.
Oh, it only takes a couple.
Come on.
You bribery works perfectly. Yeah, that's anytime you have ways you can bribe somebody. It's as long as it's legal. You know, it's get that in. We can get that within a year.
How long did it take for you to get it to be legal?
About 12, 15 years.
You oh my goodness. Well, all right. So Rec Hall. As somebody who probably in his lifetime has done at least right around 250 basketball games in there, men's basketball, probably did 60 to 70 women's basketball games in there between radio and TV, men's volleyball, women's volleyball, men's gymnastics, women's gymnastics. A lot of those are TV things I did for either Big Ten Network or for WPSU TV. So I've probably done in my lifetime at least 400 events. And wrestling. I did wrestling. Believe it or not, I did a lot of wrestling in Rec Hall for WPSU TV and for BTN. And I'd say I've done at least 400 events in there in my career. It's an amazing atmosphere because the sound, especially since they took the false ceiling out, the sound kind of reverberates off that roof and comes back down. It's not muffled or muzzled. It is. Now the end zones are. It's like, sorry, but it's a fact of life. The end zone, the big one that pulls out far, should not be right out to the court. I mean, there's a gigantic space between the end of the court and where that is. But the sidelines, the sidelines, you are right on top of it. You're 2 feet away. All right? It's amazing. So along the way, you think about some of the games that have been in there. When Glenn Robinson, the National Player of the Year, and 7th-ranked Purdue came in, and Matt Gaudio at the free throw line went chest to chest with him. All right, and Penn State won the game. Penn State had a lot of upsets in that building over teams.
Should have had at least one more.
Well, should have had a couple more.
Yeah.
When they had number 1 Temple in here, Mike Vrieswick hit 2 threes, and then I think Mark Macon hit the other 3, and they forced overtime and won. I'm like, oh, I'm sitting there like I'm broadcasting.
Macon was a good player.
Macon was a good player.
Yeah,
for the most part, he took a lot of shots.
And that's why he wasn't playing at the next level very long.
Yeah. But Mike Vrieswick, he's actually done some work, I think, helping Ben Luber at George School. Mike Vrieswick coaching, but there's the famous Indiana game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or even the late great Bobby Knight says,
well,
the wrong team won that night.
Right. The last thing that Bruce Parkhill did in shoot-around that day, and I was actually sitting in the broadcast location watching this, was to run a play from midcourt with Elton Carter throwing the ball in, where they break people to the backcourt, he fakes to the backcourt, and then Bartram takes off into the front court. So, I don't know. How much time was it, like 20 seconds left?
Yeah,
something like that.
There wasn't much.
Penn State's up 2. The play comes up. I know what play they're going to run because they're right at midcourt. And Elton Carter fakes to the backcourt. Bartram takes off into the front court, throws in the ball. Chris Reynolds grabbing his jersey. So Bartram just get off my jersey. Makes the catch, scores. 4-point game. Should do it. Then the game stops. Think to yourself, well, somebody called timeout. Who called timeout? I don't know. As I'm doing the broadcast. And they never announce, and Kevin Nelson was the public address announcer. They never announce what the result was. And also I'm looking at the board, and up on the board, they've given Bartram another foul. So the foul was called on him, and of course Sam Licklider was the one that caught. But Gene Manji is the other guy. No offense. Gene, sorry, but you enter into the conversation. It can't just be Sid. It was ridiculous. I've seen a lot of really bad calls. That may have been the single worst call I've seen based on time, score, situation. Mm-hmm. And he clearly has the guy beat. He clearly has him beat. Right. You're telling me that he committed the foul? No. The other guy, Chris Reynolds, is grabbing his jersey. Well, now it's a 2-point game. They go down, and Chris Reynolds takes, I think it was Reynolds or Graham. Maybe it was Graham. Took a 3. And Bartram is the guy that fouled him. And Bartram did foul him. It was in the corner. It's like, oh, great. 3 free throws can win the game. Only got 2 out of 3. Game goes to overtime. You're like, the heck? So now it's an overtime. Penn State goes up 7 and lost the lead, and he goes to a second overtime, and Damon Bailey hit a couple shots, and they won the game. Imagine last spring on Selection Sunday. I'm done doing the Penn State-Purdue game, and Dick Girardi and I go to the back room to see Penn State selection. Imagine how delightful it was for me to see who the head of the selection committee happened to be. Chris Reynolds. Oh, my God. Well, isn't this poetic? All right. And then there was the time a fan got tossed out by Sid Rodeheffer. A student got tossed out. I think it was a game that Penn State played against Iowa in '93. Sid didn't like what the kid was yelling at. I guess he wasn't swearing. He just didn't like what he was saying. Threw the kid out.
Oh, my God.
Threw the kid out.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Well, no, but this is all part of the pattern. I mean, you go back to Beaver Stadium, that asinine, and I mean when I say asinine, when the crowd's going crazy, and Penn State got penalized for excessive crowd noise. Okay?
I remember.
Well, why in the heck do you think they play the games in these?
Yeah.
Okay, this is not. You want to play a studio game sport? Go ahead. I mean, it's stuff like that. This kid getting thrown out.
Yeah.
That call being made with Bartram. Okay, all quiet on the Western Front because Michigan needs to hear its signals. Hey, fine, you should have worked on it during the week, Todd. Todd Collins.
I remember it completely.
Should have worked on it during the week,
And that's not the first time he did that. He did that in so many venues, and he did it in stadiums where the crowd noise was not loud. We're talking Purdue, where the bunny ran into the end zone and scored. Literally, it's unbelievable, and you're absolutely right. It's ridiculous. It's not. Thankfully, it's at the point now where they don't do that because, number one, you have the technology to incorporate the crowd noise into your practice. But the other part of it is, thankfully, officials would not go for that anymore. But that was ridiculous. This is why
Penn State fans have been so angry about certain things over the years because the pattern was set right away, like with ridiculous stuff. I'm talking just flat out ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
Where you sit back and say to yourself, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Excessive crowd noise?
Yeah, Todd Collins. I remember.
Excuse me.
Completely.
Why did they sell tickets? This is not tennis. Okay? This isn't the 17th hole at Augusta where somebody rolls in a par. Oh, well done. Nice job. Yeah. No, guess what? Okay? Yeah. It's part of playing on the road. Get used to it. I'd have penalized them. Delay a game. I'd push them back, right, until he got the message like, hey, you get up and snap the ball.
Snap the ball.
Right? Okay? The call by Sam and Gene Manji, right? Sam's the one that made the call, but Gene Manji and Sam, sorry, that's just bad. Throwing a kid out because you don't like what they're saying and the kid's not swearing, nope.
No, bad.
Fab Five played in there.
I remember that.
Intact. Weber, I think, had 20. And Jalen Rose, Ray Jackson, Jimmy King, Juwan Howard, and Chris Weber. You know how last week's game between Penn State and Michigan State was an 8-point game, but it didn't feel like it was an 8-point game, right?
Yeah.
That was Michigan and Penn State that night. Michigan won by 10, but it didn't feel like a 10-point game. Okay? The general manager of the Lakers, Rob Pelinka, knocked down, I think, at least one, maybe 2 threes in that game. I think at least 1 3 in the game. He's now the GM of the Lakers. But they had a lot of great moments in there, a lot of great upsets. Teams did not want to come in here and play. And then Penn State got good. And like I said, the last Big Ten game they played in there, Penn State was the team in one poll, not both polls, but in one poll was ranked 25th in the country. They were undefeated at the time, I think 11-0. And they beat Wisconsin 79-50. And that starting lineup, Danny Earl, Pete Lysicki, Glenn Secunda, Matt Gaudio, and a redshirt freshman by the name of Calvin Booth.
Yeah. And they were undefeated. They first moved over to the Jordan Center. They were undefeated to start that year.
They beat Minnesota
for a while there.
Another game, and then they finally lost to Michigan.
Yeah.
I think they started 13-0. Got as high as 9th in the country. And then lost to Michigan. But ended up being a 5 seed in the tournament. Lost to Arkansas, which is a 12 up in Providence. But, yeah, that's like, you think about that. Secunda played all those years in Europe, right? Gaudio, of course, was he was at the 4 spot. He was John Harrah before John Harrah. All effort, right? The head coach at Tennessee Chattanooga was the point guard. The general manager of the Denver Nuggets was the center. And the guy who spent the vast majority of his time as the all-time three-point leader in the Big Ten was the off guard who played for years and mostly in Italy. It's not a bad starting lineup. And then the Lady Lions get in there on Thursday night and rekindle all the great memories of Susie McConnell. Susie McConnell Serio. What she have 1,300 assists in her career.
It's phenomenal.
Just a phenomenal passer, player.
Then moves on and coaches Oakland Catholic.
Yep.
Unbelievable job there.
Yeah, and then Susan Robinson, her 2,000 points. Ascended to number one. Now, when they beat Virginia, it was in Charlottesville to then ascend to the number one spot. But they had some great moments in there, the Lady Lions. And Renee Portland, when she took the job, and Joe Paterno was the athletic director at the time, it was part of her deal that they were not to play in White Building. They wanted to play all their games in Rec Hall. And the Jordan Center doesn't exist at this point, so it's the arena. That was part of the agreement. She had to have her team play in Rec Hall. Annie Troyan was her point guard the first year. Now, Annie couldn't play initially because she was still recovering from a knee injury when she was out of Colorado. Carol Waldeman was her shooter. Terrific. All right. And Carol Waldeman was a good player. And then you go back in when Pat Mizer was here, Jen Bednarik was a heck of a player, Deb Chrisman, Cheryl Ellison. They had some good players and won a lot of Atlantic 10 championships. One of my favorite was 1991. Okay, so Penn State now, we all know is going to go to the Big Ten. Well, the Atlantic 10 wants to kick Penn State out. How dare you? I'll never forget Ron Berdovich saying to me, and if I'm in Ron Berdovich's shoes as the commissioner of the Atlantic 10, I would say the same thing. Okay? Down in Birmingham, Penn State was going down to play UAB in a tournament. And the first game was going to be UAB. And it was right after they made the announcement that Penn State had been invited to the Big Ten. Now, the vote hadn't taken place yet. And he says, this is going to be a big mistake for Penn State. I says, geez, Ron, I don't think so. All right, we were talking in the lobby. I said, Ron, I don't think so. I said, I think that this is long-term the play you have to make.
Yeah.
All right. And and Ron knew that, but he's defending his turf. I totally got it. So I listened to him. There was no, we'd go back and forth and just he stated what he stated. And I said, geez, Ron, I don't think so. I think long term this is the right play for Penn State for every sport. But they then had to vote. Would Penn State stay in? This is the vote. Like everybody talks about the Big Ten vote, but there was a second vote. Right? You needed 7 votes to kick Penn State out. 7. Now, of course, Penn State's won. Right? Rutgers voted to keep him. Temple voted to keep them, and West Virginia abstained. That was enough. So Penn State got to play the 90-91 season one final time in the Atlantic 10. And Penn State won the Atlantic 10 women's tournament again. And the Penn State men's team won the Atlantic 10 tournament as well. So the last time through in the Atlantic 10, Penn State won both the women's tournament and the men's tournament and got the automatic bids to the NCAA. And Ron is out there in the court handing out trophies. It's like, I kind of felt bad for him. It's like, okay. Right? And then Penn State went and beat UCLA up at the Carrier Dome 74-69. And then lost in double overtime to Eastern Michigan. And Penn State came out. They played George Washington in that. On the men's side, they came out and played George Washington for the title. Mike Jarvis was the coach. And Penn State jumped them. I mean, they jumped him. Now, you'll see the final score is, what was the final score, 6?
They didn't win by double digits. I remember that.
Yeah, 6 or 9. It was maybe a 6-point margin, like 81-75 or some number like that. But that's because Ellis McKinney hit a 3-pointer at the buzzer to take it from 9-6. It was in double digits the entire game until the last 30 seconds. All right, so you knew they were going to win. And then Michael Jennings is sitting up on top of the backboard, celebrating. It's nights like that are, you look back and I'm talking like they jumped them and built up a double-digit lead almost right away and stayed double digits the entire game, all the way through. You knew with 10 minutes ago they were going to win. You knew with 5 minutes ago they were going to win. You knew with a minute to go, like, hey, all right, let's get ready here. And it was, that was another one of those great nights in there. Now, there's a lot of great nights in there now, but it just turns out they're great nights for the women's volleyball team. They're great nights for the men's volleyball team. They're great nights for wrestling. Every night's a great night for wrestling. They wake up, it's a great day. Hey, good. Here we go. Let's go wrestle and beat somebody else. And men's gymnastics, women's gymnastics. I mean, everything that's happened. Now, I never went to a boxing match in there.
I never did either.
I never went to a boxing match, but boxing was in there as well. And this is, it's just going to be fun to go back in there and take it in all. And it's sold out. I mean, it's not, I kept asking whether there was room for you.
No, they shut it down quick. I said, who? No.
Well, they didn't say who. They knew. Right away. Right away. They knew who and what the problem happens to be. All right? They got it. It's you. I mean, most of your memories of Rec Hall are the places you used to sneak in. I worry about you. I do. You saw a team last night. It's interesting if you love basketball, and you really know basketball. There's a lot of things about the way Houston plays basketball that is really impressive. And especially on the defensive end. And Shed, the point guard, is an excellent player. You can see that he has a next level mind to go with his game, which is great. And I watched them play Iowa State last night, and they jumped out on Iowa State early. But Iowa State, to its credit, after going, I think, 1 for their first 13 from the field, normally that leads to disaster, got themselves back in the game and played tough against Houston. But Houston's defense is really good. And Shed does a great job of running it. And watch them. And by the way, the College Football Playoff Committee has approved the 5+7 model. This being the 20th, this is the day they're scheduled to do it. They approved 5+7. That means that in the end, the Pac-12, which was represented by Washington State's Kirk Schultz, acquiesced and said, we'll go for this, because it had to be unanimous. Mm-hmm. For those two schools, 5+7 is actually better because they quietly passed a rule in October when, in order to be considered as one of the conference champions, you had to play in a conference that had a minimum of 8 schools. So for Washington State and Oregon State, we're now a tidy conference of 2, where they don't need the conference room. They can just go to the restaurant and get a booth to talk over the conference issues. Right? It's actually better for them because they would not have qualified as a conference champion for the 6, right? Which could have gone, because there's only 2 of them. They actually have a better shot with an expanded at-large field at 7, and so they went along with it. And that's – so they've done that, and they're going to go 5 conference champions and 7 at-large bids. All right. So the SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, ACC, and the highest ranking group of 5 conference champion. The college football playoff intentionally will not refer to the group of 5 in its description of the format, though, because there's a chance this champion, that a champion from one of the Power 4 conferences finishes below the top champion of the American Conference, USA, Mountain West, Sun Belt, or Mid-American. Now, for example, Cincinnati, with the American Athletic Conference, they would have been ahead of the ACC champ, which is Pitt. Now, the 4 highest-ranked conference champions get the first-round bye. And they're going to play 1 game on Friday night, December 20th, 3 games on Saturday, December 21st. They're very close to coming to a new agreement on the bowl structure, where they're going to eliminate the contracts with the New Year's Six bowls that have conference tie-ins in the new contract. The Sugar Bowl historically has had the SEC and the Big 12, the Rose Bowl, of course, with the Big 10, the Pac-12, the Orange Bowl with the ACC, Big 10, and Notre Dame. The idea is they want to make this wide open for those bowls. Now, those agreements are expected to remain in place for this season and next season, but then on the new contract, they're going to make them all at large. Which would then, for example, allow, say, Georgia's the number 1 seed. They'd have the option of playing in the Peach Bowl. And I just saw Gary Stokan was here the other night, Gary Stokan was at the Michigan State game. Kept looking over his shoulders. Is the 49er guy here? I said, Gary, you're fine. Don't worry.
No.
Yeah, I said, you're good, Gary. Don't worry about it. And I said, we've got pure later security for you. But in other words, if Gary and those guys in the Peach Bowl and Georgia wants to play there as the number 1 overall seed, they can play in the Peach Bowl instead of going to the Sugar Bowl. And so that'll be the next part of it. But those contracts have 2 more years to run. So that's what they're looking at doing and making everything an at-large situation. And the number 1 seed is the one that gets to pick which one they get to go to. Which, in basketball, if you're the number 1 overall seed, you get to pick your region. You look at me confused, like you didn't know.
No, I knew that.
I mean, you always look so confused.
Nope, that's the reward.
Yeah. If you're the number 1 overall seed, you get to pick your region. Okay? Well, that would be the same with this. You're the number 1 overall seed, you get to pick which one of the New Year's Six bowl games you're playing. Yeah, which one of the 4 designated quarterfinals. Yeah. For example, this year, the Peach Bowl is a quarterfinal. Okay? And it turns out, and again, the championship game is a separate bid. Well, that stadium, the Peach Bowl committee, they get the quarterfinal, they get the championship game. But the championship game is bid out. It's not a rotation. The ugly brawl in the layup line, in the handshake line last night between Texas A&M Commerce and Incarnate Word. Something tells me the players at Incarnate Word are going to confession today.
No, I feel like it.
It is unclear what sparked the fight in the handshake line, but it involved multiple players from both teams. Coaches and players from each team tried to separate the brawling players, but the fracas continued for more than a minute as members of the 2 programs scuffled across the court. There were several players on the floor and multiple pileups as the fight continued. They say a young girl in the crowd was hurt as a result of the problem, and one of the team managers had blood on his face. In a statement later, Incarnate Word and A&M Commerce issued apologies for the behavior exhibited by our respective men's basketball programs. There's no place in college sports for such actions, the statement read. The unsportsmanlike conduct that occurred at the end of the game, how about in sportsmanlike conduct? How about a fight, right? Occurred after the game does not reflect the values of the universities involved, as well as the Southland Conference and their member institutions. Blah 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 blah. Okay. The matter is currently being reviewed collectively by the conference office in both institutions, as the safety of our student athletes, staff, and fans is our primary concern. Well, then don't fight each other.
Don't fight each other. You know, good Lord, it's real hard to tell.
It's like watching Jim Carrey in Liar Liar, when Carrey is the lawyer can't lie.
Can't lie.
And they said. Whatever, Jason's on the phone, you know, he's like, he was caught robbing a place or whatever. It's like his 12th time or whatever. He says he needs your legal advice, and he grabs the phone. He goes, "Stop breaking the law." That's my advice. It's like, okay. I've talked about this before. A guy hits the deck and goes on the floor, or hits the deck and is on the field. And you'll see guys stand over them. Help them up. It's okay.
It's okay to do that, yeah. There's sportsmanship in sports, believe it or not.
But it's okay to do it. The play's over.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, especially if somebody hits the deck hard. Hey, you know, start to help them up, make sure they're okay. That's fine. Everybody's, I'm going to my corner. For goodness sake.
It's a rivalry. We hate each other.
Just take the ball and shoot. It's such a rivalry. Why'd you transfer there?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, rivalry.
Yeah.
I can't stand that stuff.
No,
it's okay to help the other dude up. It's all right.
Yeah, great.
Okay? And guess what? In the handshake line, you're not going to have these problems if you maybe took a better approach instead of the macho. It's like, just, right? It's, you know, standing over people, flexing, things like that. Like, okay, I mean, I don't mind if you do that to the crowd. Like, play to the crowd. Like the Tominaga kid plays to the crowd. He's great. He's a great showman. Caitlin Clark's a showman. Okay? That's fine. I have no problem with that because they're playing to the crowd. Right? They're not. It's like Nebraska beat Iowa. This girl hit a big shot for Nebraska and then kind of looks over and starts doing this to Caitlin Clark. I'm like, well, what are you doing? For goodness sakes. Just. It's all right. Okay? Celebrate with your people. Celebrate with your teammates. And by the way, if you happen to knock the other person down, it's okay to reach down and help them back up, especially if the foul's on him or her.
That's when you pat him on the back.
I say, thank you. Appreciate you. It's all right. What bothers me is that when we have the holiday party here and you get that way, I want the turkey leg.
Tell you, did not intend to do the Bob Knight and throw the chair last time, but yeah, it worked.
That was the point where I just quietly put my head down and ducked out. And then you wear this shirt today.
Tell you,
okay. Exhibiting and enabling a culture of violence in the NHL that they've tried to, by wearing Dave the Hammer Schultz, his T-shirt. Dave the Hammer Schultz, who, when he scored a goal, it was an accident. Bob Battleship Kelly. Well, they also had Bernie Perrant. They had the Watsons, Jimmy and Joe.
Yeah, they were
Bobby
good.
Clark.
Clark was pretty good player.
Rick McLeish.
McLeish was a good player,
right. Was Reggie Leach on that team?
Was he on both teams?
He was on one of them.
He was on one of them, I think.
Yeah. Bill Barber.
Yeah, Barber's another one, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. When they beat the Soviets, and they really the Soviets left.
Yeah.
Remember the Soviets was at the end of the first period? I think it was the end of the first period. Soviets wouldn't come back. You want to know how they got them back? This is rich. You want to know how they got them back? To play the second and third periods? They went in there and told them, if you don't come back out, you're not getting the money.
There you go. That works.
Right? Suddenly out of nowhere, capitalism was very important.
That works.
Suddenly out of nowhere, right? We all found out at that point they're all about the money.
Oh, you betcha.
That's how they got him back. All right, back tomorrow. More on Rec Hall, and hopefully when it comes to the ability to wear proper attire and protocol, you will change up.
That's right.
It's just another. I just wonder sometimes if you just take all of this for granted. Look at everything we've handed you. Look at the golden opportunities that this station has afforded you. The confidence that Jerry Valeri has shown in you.
Right.
Where instead of putting you on every day, he puts you on once in a while. Look at that.
Right.
You can't put a price on that kind of confidence. We'll talk to you tomorrow.